Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing? And today I've decided we're going to spend a little more time talking about this recent story from John Canzano because this is a big deal. I don't think I even did full justice how big a deal this would be. So I already made one video talking about this, but there were a couple more things that I want to go over after getting a chance to read the full article and digest the things that people are saying after this article came out, and also replying to some of the comments I got in my previous video about this. So there are a few things that I want to just go over concerning this. And I figure this is a big enough deal to where we can spend multiple videos talking about it, especially during the off season. So we're going to spend a little bit of more time on this. And look, the owner, the owner of your sports team, it's a big deal. It's a big deal that they do things the right way. And we had an owner for 20 years who did things the right way. And now for the last few years, we've had an owner that TBD. It's there's some stuff to like and there's some stuff to not like. We don't know, and we were faced with the possibility that we would be saddled with that owner for the foreseeable future, and you couldn't help but wonder, like, where is this organization going to go if this is our owner long term and she is these things that the naysayers think that she is. So let's go a little deeper into this article from John Canzano because it actually says some pretty interesting things. First of all, he makes it clear that this is not the team should be sold or Paul Allen wanted it to be sold or Jody Allen wants to sell it. He doesn't say any of those things. He says very specifically that the Paul Allen Trust dictated that they had to be sold. They had to be. Whoever inherited the trust right now, that would be, well, Jody Allen, she's overseeing it, they would have no opportunity to do anything else. The teams must be sold. Now, I don't know if Jody Allen is capable of stepping outside that trust and then purchasing the teams herself, but that's not the impression that I'm getting here. And according to this article, it's mostly because he wants to fund his passion projects. So I just find this kind of interesting. I'm surprised we didn't know about this until recently. Maybe some people knew about it and they just weren't really talking about it. Obviously, I try to keep my ear close to the ground on this stuff, and I was under the impression that there might have been some sort of timeline where the team could not be sold until X date, but I did not know that the trust dictated specifically that the teams have to be sold. And when I say teams, I also mean the Trailblazers, because they are also part of the trust and they are apparently subject to the same rule. Both teams have to be sold by a certain date. We don't I couldn't tell you exactly when that date is, but the Blazers are expected to be sold in the next year, maybe 2 years, and the Seahawks are expected to follow pretty soon after. So we may be speeding towards a quick resolution. Now, we haven't seen a ton of sources backing up Canzano here. We have not seen a lot of people come out and say, oh, yeah, that's correct. Yep, that's correct. But if you read this article by Canzano, it's not using any rumors or hearsay. It's straight up saying, like, no, this is what the trust says. There is no room for interpretation here. They have to be sold by, I assume, a couple of years down the line. So that's pretty interesting. And it doesn't seem like it was because that Paul knew that Jody wasn't going to be that interested in the team. It doesn't seem like he had a specific person he wanted to sell the team to or anything like that. It seems like it was because he wants those assets to be liquidated for money so he can fund his passion projects. And that has to be a little bit alarming, right? Because that being the case, the interest is just selling the team, not selling the team to the right person, selling the team to a guy who's going to want to win, going to do the things that you need to do to keep a team successful. It's just sell the team to the highest bidder. So that can be a little bit of a concern spot for some people. It doesn't sound like this is a sports decision so much as it is a business decision. Some people may be uncomfortable with that. The article goes on to list some guys that to watch to see who actually buys the team. Most of this article is about the Blazers because Canzano is mostly a Blazers guy. But it does talk a little bit about the Seahawks and talking about who might buy them. Basically, keep an eye on whoever loses the bid for the Denver Broncos. That's not really the important thing here. So basically, that being the case, it being the case that we now know for a fact that Jody Allen's not going to be owning this team for very much longer. We're talking maybe 2 or 3 years at most if this article is taken as true. Then we have to ask ourselves who's going to be the buyer. There aren't that many people who could afford it, I guess. So you could probably look at a list of the richest people in the world, and that's a pretty good starting point. But one thing I really want to talk about in this video for a few minutes is there seem to be some people who are genuinely concerned about the Seahawks being sold to somebody who will then move the team. I find it very hard to even entertain that at the time being. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it is so unlikely. I don't think it's worth spending any time thinking about it. I looked at some of the comments in the last video I made about this situation, and there does seem to be genuine concern that if we sell to the wrong person, the team could get moved. But I'm just not, I can't bring myself to be concerned about that. I want you guys to think about this for a second here. The Seattle Seahawks, since Paul Allen bought them, but let's start at the turn of the century. Let's say we start at the turn of the century, so 2000 on. They've been one of the most successful teams in the NFL. They've won a Super Bowl. They've been to 3 Super Bowls. They've had a league MVP. They've made the playoffs all but, 6 seasons? Like, I think they have, 14 or 15 playoff appearances. They've won a decent chunk of playoff games. They've had 2 very successful runs around future Hall of Fame head coaches, Mike Holmgren and his run, and now Pete Carroll and his run. The list of NFL teams that have been more successful than the Seahawks over the last, let's call it 22 years, since the turn of the millennium, it's short. It's like the Patriots, the Steelers, the Ravens, maybe the Broncos. Rams are in the conversation, but the Rams were terrible for like half the last 20 plus years, so I don't think you would really say them. Right? It's like after you get past the big few teams, Seahawks might be top 5 in level of success over the last 20 plus years. Basically, you could say since Paul Allen bought the team, almost. They're probably top 5. If not, they're top 6. So is that team really in danger of being moved? I seriously doubt it. And not just team success. Look at the ticket sales. Look at the fan backing. This team has a big fan base. Remember, we are basically the only football team in the Pacific Northwest. So a lot of people in Oregon are Seahawks fans. Well, I don't want to say a lot, but a decent chunk of Oregon is Seahawks fans. If you're not a Niners fan in Oregon, you're probably a Seahawks fan. States like Idaho, Wyoming, those states have decent chunk of Seahawks fans because we're the closest team. A lot of Canadians are Seahawks fans. Like, there's a pretty strong fan base in place here. And while last year saw a significant fall off in fan turnout and viewership from the Seattle area, generally speaking, we have a good fan base that is willing to spend the money and go to the games and support the team. So when you look at some of the teams in the NFL right now that don't have those things, they don't have the success, they don't have the track record of getting a lot of fan support. Why would the Seahawks be the team that gets moved? And I know some people would argue, well, they're the team that's going to be available. Like it's right now, we have the Broncos and the Seahawks. Who else is going to be available? So if you want to buy a team and move it to, I don't know, Puerto Rico or something, then your choices are limited. But I don't think the league would allow a team with a strong fan base and a big track record of recent success to just move. Like the league can stop that process if they want to. And I I just don't see it happening. So that's what I'm going to say to the people who are scared about the Seahawks being moved. As of right now, it's so small chance that it happens. I don't think it's worth spending the time to worry about it. Whoever buys the team, they might have connections to the Seattle area, they might not. There are certainly guys who could do it who have connections to the area, right? There definitely. But even if it's not, I think you would be some people I just think you'd be losing so much to move the team. Like, okay, some people say the team is going to move to San Antonio, right? You're going to compete with the Dallas Cowboys and, well, okay, I'm not going to say compete with the Houston Texans. That's an easy competition. But you're kind of intruding on another team's territory and leaving behind a fan base that is already pretty well rooted in. So, I don't know. Personally, I can't see it. The only other interesting thing from this article is, I guess, that Jody Allen wants to keep a piece of the Seahawks, which she'll probably be able to find a way to do. But that's really all I got for this video. Let me know what you guys think. I just really want to push back on this idea. I think the most important thing here is if you're scared of the Seahawks being moved because of this sale, I just don't see it. I just don't. Okay, the teams that get moved are teams that have been bad for a long time. Teams that don't have a big fan base, teams that don't sell tickets. Like the Rams got moved because the team had been terrible for a long period of time, and it gave the buyers a window to move in there and be like, okay, well, it's not working here. Let's go to LA. Same with the Chargers. The Chargers had actually been good, but they were playing in San Diego. They were viewed as kind of one of the smallest markets in the NFL. So it was the door was open for ownership to move them to the big city. I just don't see it here. Tough for me to believe the league would allow it to happen, even if the new owner wanted it to happen. There are teams out there right now that, if we're being straight honest, maybe need to be moved. Like the Jaguars, especially now that Tampa Bay has become a at least temporary NFC powerhouse. How is that team ever going to get a foothold in Florida at this point? Not happening. So there are other teams that need to be moved way before the Seahawks do. And that's how I look at things. But nevertheless, this is a very interesting article. Basically guarantees, if this article is to be believed, it's now guaranteed. Jody Allen's not going to be owning this team for much longer. And whoever buys the team, hopefully they're able to do the things that Paul did, because this team they were bad. They were really, really bad before Paul Allen got here. And then after Paul Allen got here, things have been pretty great. Again, top 5, top 6 of all NFL franchises in that window of time, almost certainly. All right, see you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think. But surprising and interesting.